So, we've talked about birth control pills and controlling reproduction, but a lot of birth control pills are prescribed to help menstrual cycles, and which is, I know so many people that have gone that route. Are there natural options to control that so we're not messing with the estrogen and all the chemicals in our body?
Oh, I am so glad that you asked that. So I look at giving birth control pills for non-contraceptive use, which you mentioned, like dysmenorrhea, menstrual cramps. They also use it for heavy periods or acne. They're using it a lot more for acne, premenstrual syndrome, so all of these different things. That's like taking a wall that's filled with mold and termites and saying, I don't really want to deal with it. That's too much trouble, so I'll just put wallpaper over it. But the day of reckoning is going to come. And it does for these young women that are put on birth control pills to try to cover up their symptoms. The first thing is to recognize that the menstrual cycle is a vital sign of a woman's health status. So it's like waving a red flag saying, there's something wrong here, you've got to deal with it. Why is the menstrual cycle so abnormal? Why are they having so much pain or heavy bleeding and so on? So the menstrual cycle is going to be related to the hormones and to the state of inflammation and to the microbiomes, like of the vagina and of the reproductive tract. So you've got to look at the whole picture. Young girls now have terrible periods. It wasn't like this. Human females did not evolve to have misery with their cycles. It wasn't that way. Maybe a little bit of cramps for one day, but that's it. It should never be what it currently is. That's because there's so much nutrient deficiency. We can start with that. If you have low levels of antioxidants, vitamin A and E and D, and you don't have a lot of minerals, particularly magnesium, you're going to have menstrual cramps. So the diets that people are eating now, they're not filled with the antioxidants, the polyphenols that we need. So we need to look at the young girl's diet. So that's the first thing, is what are they eating? If it's a typical Western diet, of course they have menstrual cramps. They don't have the proper nutrition to work the proper machinery. Then you want to look at the microbiome of the vagina. So, for example, if they're using tampons that are filled with glyphosate, unfortunately, that's what they do. Glyphosate has many bad things about it. It's an herbicide that's in Roundup, but it is now recognized that it's an antimicrobial, so it kills microbes. So the vagina has one of the most complex microbiomes. It's like the microbiome of the gut is very complex, but so is the microbiome of the vagina. So we're putting in, just like we're messing with glyphosate in the gut and people are having leaky gut and all this dysbiosis, we're doing the same vaginally. So we have problems there. So we have to get rid of that, get organic tampons, use pads, or use the menstrual cup. So we can help them in that regard so that we're not altering the microbiome. Then we have to look at the circadian rhythm. A lot of these girls are going to bed too late. They have lots of light. We know that has a great deal to do with the way every aspect of the body, the immune system, and the way their hormones are produced. The menstrual cycle itself has circadian rhythm to it. So we know, for example, that women who work at night, like shift workers, that they have very bad menstrual cycles. They tend to have irregular cycles, pain. They have all the symptoms that we're talking about treating. So there are clock genes in the ovaries, and they have receptors to melatonin as well. So if you don't get the proper sleep at the proper time, so you have to look at sleep habits, light exposure. If they sleep in a room that has a lot of light, then they're not going to produce enough melatonin, which is a potent antioxidant, and you need to have that. So what's happening in the menstrual cycle that gives cramps is that when you have the drop-off of progesterone, it triggers the production of inflammatory prostaglandins in the uterine cavity. Having a menstrual cycle is an inflammatory process. You have tissue that's dying in the lining, the endometrium is dying off, and then it has to be sloughed. So the body is trying to deal with that. So it creates an inflammatory state in the uterine cavity, and it has prostaglandins of the inflammatory site, which trigger a little bit of cramps. That's what triggers labor in women, is prostaglandins. So we need to have that whole system in order. As well, the endocannabinoid system is involved with the menstrual cycle, and a lot of people don't know anything about the endocannabinoid system, but the progesterone, you need to have a high level of progesterone, and what that does is it upregulates the CBD the CB1 receptors, which are one of the receptors for the endocannabinoid system that's on the inflammatory cells. So basically what it's doing is it's trying to control that inflammation. So we create inflammation, at the same time the body has mechanisms to control that inflammation. But if you're not having the proper rhythm and you don't make enough progesterone, so you can still have cycles, but maybe your progesterone isn't adequate, or the progesterone receptors are not working properly because you didn't get the spike of estrogen that you should get. So things are just off, remember, because we know that women with night shift work, their menstrual cycles get off. So you don't have quite the right hormone, and then you don't have the proper endocannabinoid system function, you don't produce the prostaglandins properly, you probably produce too many prostaglandins, you don't have the right nutrients to control the whole process, you don't have the antioxidants, the polyphenols, the minerals, and so on. You end up with all this menstrual dysfunction. So you're not helping any of this. It's complex. You know, the problem is we are complex creatures, and females more so than males. And nobody wants to take the time to look at all of these things, to understand it, so they just want to put that wallpaper up. Every time, just put the wallpaper up. That is not helping these young women, not at all. So we have to get back to basics. We have to do all the foundational things of lifestyle, get them to eat the right foods, to exercise. We know that exercise can increase gut microbial diversity, and then, you know, that will reduce leaky gut, and they will also have less systemic inflammation. A lot of these girls are like girls on fire. You know, they're really inflamed, and that's why they're breaking out in acne. Acne is like a manifestation of internal inflammation. You've got to start from the inside and start with the gut. And when you have menstrual cycle, you got to think about, like I said, the vaginal microbiome, but it's the whole body. There's no shortcuts. You got to look at every aspect of lifestyle. And when a woman has a really normal cycle, it's regular, it's not heavy, not exceptionally heavy or painful, she doesn't have PMS, then that's telling you things are right with that woman. She is as healthy and reproductively functioning as she should be. And if she isn't that way, we should not whitewash it. We shouldn't cover it up. We need to help her, because this is going to, the day of reckoning will come, because she is going to be at higher risk for every bad thing, from mood disorders to cancer to heart disease and osteoporosis and everything else, if we don't get it right.